The ethics clause. You'll lose everything and go to prison. I'm blocking your number. Don't test me. Sam Rutherford, I sent it. Then I blocked Walter's number, his email, and Jessica's number. Helen was still on the line. Sam, I sent him a reply, then I blocked him. Silence. Then Helen said quietly, Good. Is that it? Is it really over? Yes, the trust is ironclad. Walter has no legal recourse. Victor can't touch the land. Morrison Energy has the lease. You're protected. She paused. Harold built this, Sam. She thought of everything. All you have to do now is live. Thank you, Helen. You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad she trusted me to help. Her voice softened. I'll be in touch next week about the drilling schedule. For now, rest. You've earned it. She hung up. I sat on the porch phone in my hand staring at the blocked contact screen. Walter Rutherford. Son. Blocked. I thought I'd feel something, grief maybe. Regret. But all I felt was emptiness. Like a chapter I didn't want to read had finally ended. I thought of him as a kid, 8 years old, building a birdhouse in the garage with me, frustrated because the nails kept bending. I'd shown him how to hold the hammer, how to angle the strike. When he finally got it right, he'd looked up at me with this huge grin. I did it, Dad. That boy was gone. Maybe he'd been gone for years. Maybe he'd never really existed. I put the phone in my pocket and walked inside. An hour later, Earl showed up. I heard his truck pull into the yard, the door slam. He climbed the porch steps, a 6-pack of bottled water in one hand. Heard you might need company, he said. I opened the door. How'd you know? Helen called me, said Walter back down. Figured you'd be sitting here alone thinking too much. He handed me the water. Thought you could use a visitor. We sat on the porch steps. Earl cracked open a bottle, took a long drink. I did the same. For a while neither of us spoke, just the wind through the wheat, the creak of the barn door. Finally Earl said, Harold told me something once, about Walter. I looked at him. This was back when she first got sick. She'd drive out here to check on the farm, and sometimes she'd stop by my station for coffee. One day she sat at the counter for an hour, just staring at her cup. I asked if she was okay. She said, I'm trying to figure out when I lost my son. My throat tightened. Earl continued. I told her maybe she didn't lose him. Maybe he just chose a different path. She shook her head, said, Walter was born wanting more money, more status, more proof that he mattered. I thought if I gave him enough, he'd be satisfied. But there's no enough. Not for him. Earl looked at me. Then she said, that's his choice. Not my failure. Not Sam's failure. His. I stared at the wheat fields. I keep thinking I should have seen it. Should have stopped it. How? Earl's voice was gentle but firm. He's a grown man. He made his choices. Harold knew that. That's why she didn't confront him. She knew he wouldn't change. So she built walls to protect you instead. I nodded slowly. She spent 2 years doing it. Yeah, and it worked. Earl drained his bottle. Walter is gone. You're still here. The farm's yours. That's what she wanted. We sat in silence for a few more minutes. Then Earl stood, clapped me on the shoulder. I'll check on you tomorrow. You need anything, call. Thanks, Earl. He walked to his truck, paused at the door. Sam? Yeah. Harold was proud of you. She told me that too. He climbed in and drove away. That night I sat at the card table with a pen and a notebook Earl had left behind. The generator hummed outside. The lantern cast warm light across the page. I wrote April 3rd, 2023. Today I lost a son. Walter withdrew all legal challenges. He keeps the mansion, the investments, the $12 million. I keep the farm. We will never speak again. I thought I would feel grief, but I don't. I feel relief. He made his choices. He stole from Harold while she was dying. He conspired with her enemy. He tried to lock me away. Those were his choices, not mine. Harold knew. She saw it coming. She spent 2 years building walls to protect me, and it worked. I paused, stared at the page. Then I wrote, Today I gained a future, 800 acres, an oil field worth millions, a partnership that will let me live the rest of my life without fear. A legacy Harold left because she loved me. I'm 68 years old. I'm starting over. And for the first time in months, I'm not afraid. I set the pen down and closed the notebook. Outside, the wind rattled the screen door. The yellow rose swayed on the porch. I thought of Harold in her hard hat, standing in the wheat field, saying, This land has been good to us, Sam. It's got one more gift left. She'd been right. I turned off the lantern, lay down on the cot, and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, Morrison Energy would start site prep. Tomorrow, the future would begin. But tonight I just rested. May 1st, 10 in the morning. David Morrison's white Morrison Energy pickup rolled slowly into the farmhouse yard, gravel crackling beneath the tires. I was already sitting on the porch, a half-empty mug of coffee warming my hands as I watched the wheat fields ripple under the morning sun. The green had started turning gold over the past few days, a quiet signal that spring was giving way to summer. David stepped out of the truck with a leather briefcase tucked under his arm. He climbed the porch steps and offered his hand. "Morning, Mr. Rutherford," he said. "Ready to make this official?" I set the coffee mug aside and stood. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." Inside the farmhouse, we sat at the card table beneath the window. Dust drifted lazily through the light as David opened his briefcase and removed a thick stack of papers. He spread the contract across the table, 30 pages at least, neatly organized with colored tabs marking the places I needed to sign. "This," he said, tapping the first page, "is the drilling partnership agreement Harold and I finalized last October. I'd like to walk you through the key points." I leaned forward and pulled the contract closer. "First," David began, "Morrison Energy covers the entire cost of drilling operations. The estimated total investment is between $8 and $10 million. I raised my eyebrows. "You won't be paying a cent," he continued. "We handle everything: permits, equipment, labor, transportation, site preparation. Your role is simply to own the land." I nodded slowly. "Second," he said, turning the page, "you retain full ownership of the farm. The lease grants us rights to extract minerals, but the land itself stays yours. If you ever decide to sell the property someday, the royalty agreement transfers with the deed." "Okay," I said quietly. "Third," David continued, "you receive 75% of net royalties." He paused for emphasis. "That's after operational costs are deducted, maintenance, transport taxes. It's an extraordinary percentage, frankly almost unheard of in this industry." He gave a small smile. "Harold negotiated very hard for that." For a moment, I pictured her sitting across from him months earlier, thin from chemotherapy, pale but stubborn, refusing to back down. "How much does that actually mean?" I asked. David flipped to another page. "The geological surveys estimate recoverable reserves around $25 million over the life of the field. Production could last anywhere from 20 to 30 years, depending on extraction rates." He looked directly at me. "Based on current projections, you're likely looking at $2 to $3 million per year in royalties." 2 to 3 million. Every year. For a long moment, I said nothing. David turned another page. "Fourth," he said gently, "Harold arranged a temporary income structure to support you while drilling begins." He pointed at a section in the contract. "There's a trust fund containing $500,000. It's being managed by Sterling Wealth. Beginning July 1st, it will generate approximately $4,200 per month." I blinked. "That's your income during the drilling phase. Once production begins, likely about 18 months from now, you'll start receiving quarterly royalty checks, in addition to the trust income, $4,200 a month. More than double what my teacher's pension had ever paid." "You okay?" David asked. I exhaled slowly. "Yeah, it's just a lot to take in." He nodded. "I understand. But this is exactly what Harold wanted." He slid the final page toward me. "I just need your signature here, here, and here. Once that's done, we file the agreement with the state, and drilling begins May 15th. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled slightly as I signed each line, but the signatures were clear. David added his own signature and carefully organized the paperwork into a folder before handing it to me. "Congratulations, Mr. Rutherford," he said with a grin. "You're officially an oil man." I let out a short laugh. "I spent 40 years teaching history," I said. "I don't know a thing about oil." David stood and shook my hand again. "You don't need to," he said. "That's what we're here for." He closed his briefcase. "The crew will arrive next week. I'll keep you informed every step of the way." After he drove off, the farmhouse fell quiet again. I sat alone at the table staring at the contract. 75%. $2 to $3 million a year. $4,200 a month starting in July. Harold had built this. While I was holding her hand at night, reading to her in the dim light of the bedroom, she had been building a future I didn't even know existed. I carefully folded the contract and placed it inside the trunk beside her letters. May 15th, 7 in the morning. I woke to the rumble of diesel engines and the echo of men shouting across the fields. Pulling on my jeans, I stepped outside. The empty land behind the barn had transformed overnight. Flatbed trucks carried steel beams and drilling pipe. A crane towered over the site while workers in bright safety vests unloaded equipment. Nearly 20 men moved quickly across the field, setting up barriers and positioning machinery. A broad-shouldered man in his 50s approached me. "You Mr. Rutherford?" he asked. "Yeah." Caleb Miller, site foreman. His handshake was firm. "We're setting up the first derrick today. Should have it operational by the end of the week." "That fast?" He chuckled. "Mrs. Rutherford already did 90% of the work. Permits were filed months ago. Geological surveys completed. Site prep mapped out." He pointed toward a cluster of orange survey flags 200 yards away. She picked that exact location herself. October 22nd, 2022. I stared at the flags. October, only weeks after she'd discovered Walter stealing from her. While she was gathering evidence and preparing legal traps, she had also been planning this. "She was thorough," I said quietly. Caleb nodded. "Best client I've ever worked with." He clapped my shoulder. "We'll do right by her. You'll see." I spent the rest of the day watching the construction. By evening, the skeleton of the derrick rose 30 feet into the air, steel beams forming a towering outline against the sky. Around 6 o'clock, Earl pulled into the yard with sandwiches. We sat on the porch steps together while the crew bolted cross beams into place. "Harold would have loved seeing this," Earl said. "Yeah," I said softly. "Heard Morrison's hiring local workers, too. 10 full-time jobs, 20 seasonal. That's good." Earl grinned. "My gas station's been busier this week than the last 6 months combined." He nudged my shoulder. "You're a job creator now, Sam." I laughed. Never thought I'd hear that. We sat quietly as the sun sank behind the wheat fields, the derrick silhouetted against a sky burning orange. July 25th, 2 in the afternoon. I was repairing the porch railing when a shout rose from the drill site, then another, then cheering. I dropped the hammer and hurried across the field. The entire crew had gathered around the base of the derrick. Men were slapping each other's backs, laughing and shouting. Caleb saw me approaching. "We hit it," he yelled. I pushed through the crowd. At the base of the derrick, a black liquid flowed into a metal collection tray. Thick, shiny, unmistakable. Oil. Caleb grinned like a kid. "Preliminary estimate 800 barrels a day. That's strong production, Mr. Rutherford. Real strong." I stared down at the dark pool. It didn't look like $2 million a year. It looked like mud, but it wasn't mud. It was my future. "How long until full production?" I asked. 6 weeks to complete extraction systems," Caleb said. "But your first royalty check should start coming in about a year." Around me, the crew celebrated high fives, laughter, someone cracking open a cooler of beer. But I stood quietly beside the derrick. Harold had known this was here. She'd protected it. And she'd won. July 28th, evening. The whiskey barrel on the porch had cracked from the summer heat, so I dug a proper hole beside the steps and replanted the yellow rose bush. Earl had brought compost earlier that morning. I mixed it into the soil and carefully lowered the plant into the ground. The bush had grown strong over the past months, bright green leaves, several new buds beginning to form. I watered the roots until the soil turned dark. Then I sat on the porch steps and looked out across the fields. Floodlights now illuminated the drilling site. The hum of machinery drifted through the night air as crews worked late shifts finishing the extraction systems. Beyond the derrick, the sun was sinking low over the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. I walked slowly toward the derrick. Clear pipes carried thick black oil into a large storage tank nearby. The steady flow made a low humming sound that vibrated through the steel structure. I placed my hand against the cold metal beam. 75% of everything flowing through those pipes belonged to me. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Enough to never worry about money again. Enough to build something meaningful. I pictured Harold standing right here in her hard hat months ago, pointing at geological maps and telling David Morrison exactly where to drill. The wind rustled through the wheat. I whispered softly into the evening air, "Thank you, Harold." The derrick hummed steadily behind me. Oil flowed through the pipes. And for the first time since she had passed away, I finally felt whole again. August 10th, 6 p.m. I was sitting on the porch watching the derrick lights flicker on as the sun set when Earl's truck pulled into the yard. He climbed out, phone in hand. "You seen the news?" Walkman, "No." "Why?" He held up his phone. A video was playing local Tulsa news reporter, standing in front of a glass office building downtown. The Chiron read, "Oil exec arrested. Federal charges." I took the phone. The reporter's voice was crisp, professional. "Victor Hartman, CEO of Hartman Oil and Gas, was arrested this morning by FBI agents at his Tulsa headquarters. Federal prosecutors have charged Hartman with wire fraud conspiracy to commit fraud and industrial espionage. According to court documents unsealed today, the investigation began in late 2021 and was based on evidence provided by Harold Caldwell Rutherford, founder of Morrison Energy Solutions, who served as a confidential FBI informant until her passing in February of this year. I stopped the video, stared at the screen. Harold, FBI informant. Earl watched me. You didn't know. No, she was working with them the whole time. I handed the phone back, my hands numb. She never told me. Probably didn't want to put you at risk. Earl pocketed the phone. Victor's going down, Sam. Federal case. They don't arrest guys like him unless it's airtight. I nodded slowly. My chest felt tight. Harold had been fighting a war on two fronts Walter and Victor and I hadn't known about either until she was gone. Earl squeezed my shoulder. I'll leave you be. Call if you need anything. He left. I sat on the porch steps staring at the derrick, trying to make sense of it. 20 months, September 2021 to February 2023. The whole time she was sick, she'd been feeding evidence to the FBI, meeting with agents, building a case, and she'd never said a word. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Rutherford. This is Special Agent Sarah Thompson, FB, White Collar Crime Division. I believe you have my card. I pulled out my wallet, the card from the insurance box. Yeah, I have it. We need to talk. Can I come out to the farm this afternoon? Okay. She arrived at 2, mid-40s, dark suit badge clipped to her belt. She shook my hand, businesslike but not unkind. We sat at the card table. She opened a briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Your wife contacted us in September 2021. She'd discovered evidence that Victor Hartman was engaged in industrial espionage, stealing proprietary geological data, bribing county officials, attempting to manipulate lease auctions. She also informed us that her son was involved. I nodded. I know. I found the folders. The blue folder, Victor Hartman Conspiracy. Yeah, that's what we used to build the case. Your wife was meticulous. Every email, every wire transfer, every meeting, she documented it all. She met with us monthly for 20 months. Even after her diagnosis, she insisted on continuing. Torres closed the folder. She was one of the most dedicated informants I've ever worked with. My throat tightened. What happens now? We've arrested Victor. He's being held without bail. Trial's set for next spring. We expect a conviction. The evidence is overwhelming. He's looking at 15 to 20 years federal prison. And Walter, Torres' expression shifted slightly. We approached him 3 days ago, offered immunity in exchange for testimony against Victor. He accepted. I stared at her. He gets nothing. No prison time. Immunity means he testifies truthfully, and we don't prosecute him for conspiracy or wire fraud. But he's not walking away clean. He'll lose his CPA license. His reputation's finished. And if he lies on the stand, the immunity deal voids and we charge him with perjury on top of everything else. I nodded slowly. Walter would testify. He'd throw Victor under the bus to save himself. It was exactly what I expected. We'll need your testimony too, Torres said. You're a victim, the embezzlement, the guardianship scheme, the nursing facility contract. Your testimony corroborates your wife's evidence. When? Next week. We'll depose you at my office in Oklahoma City. Shouldn't take more than a few hours. Okay. She stood, handed me her card again. If Walter contacts you, don't engage. Let me know immediately. The immunity deal prohibits him from interfering with witnesses. He won't contact me. I blocked him. Good. She shook my hand. Your wife did an incredible thing, Mr. Rutherford. She protected you, built a case, and took down one of the most corrupt operators in Oklahoma oil. You should be proud of her. I am. She left. I sat alone at the table, staring at the folder she left behind, a copy of Harold's FBI statements, transcripts of her meetings, photos of Victor's office emails between Walter and Victor. 20 months. She'd carried this alone. August 13th. My phone rang. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, it's Walter. I need to talk to you. The FBI came to me. They're offering immunity if I testify. I don't know what to do. Can you call me back, please? I deleted the voicemail. August 18th, Helen called. Sam, I wanted you to hear it from me. Walter signed the immunity deal. He's testifying against Victor in exchange for no prison time. But the state bar revoked his CPA license this morning. He's also been fired from his consulting firm. It's all over the Tulsa Business News. Good. There's more. He tried to sell the Southern Hills house. No buyers. The scandal's attached to his name now. He's radioactive. I thought of the mansion, the mahogany table where Helen had read the will, the office Walter had demolished. He made his choices. Yes, he did. Helen paused. How are you doing? I'm okay. Oil production's on schedule. Yeah, Carlos says we're on track for first royalty checks next summer. Good, I'll check in next month. She hung up. I stood, walked to the bedroom, and pulled open the drawer of the card table. Inside was the last photo I had of Walter High School graduation, 1993 cap and gown, grinning at the camera. I'd kept it through everything. Through the eviction, the POA, the confrontation. I'd told myself it was a reminder of who he used to be. But that boy was gone. Maybe he'd never existed. I tore the photo in half, then in quarters. I walked outside and dropped the pieces into the burn barrel Earl had set up last month. I struck a match, dropped it in. The photo curled and blackened. Smoke rose into the evening air. I stood there watching it burn and whispered, "You chose your path. I chose mine." The smoke drifted across the wheat fields. The derrick hummed in the distance. The yellow rose swayed on the porch. I turned and walked inside. Tomorrow I'd drive to Oklahoma City and give my testimony. Tomorrow I'd help put Victor Hartman in prison. But tonight I was done with Walter, for good. September 15th, 2024. The mail carrier knocked on the farmhouse door at exactly 10 in the morning. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. Most days the mailbox brought nothing but routine utility bills, advertisements for tractor parts, flyers from farm supply stores. But today she stood on the porch holding a thick certified envelope. "Mornin', Sam," she said. "Mornin'." She handed it to me. The envelope felt heavier than normal mail official somehow. The return address read, Morrison Energy Solutions, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I signed the receipt on her clipboard. When she drove away, I closed the door and walked back to the card table beneath the window. My hands were already trembling when I tore the envelope open. Inside were two things, a check and a 2-page royalty statement. I unfolded the report first. The heading was crisp and formal. Morrison Energy Solutions, royalty statement, period. Q, 2/20/24. April 1st.